Hello folks, and thank you very much for staying tuned to EPD Media YouTube channel to the TVET Entrepreneurship and Job Creation series. Now before I continue, I just want to ask you to subscribe to this channel if you already haven't done so. Since we started this series on TVET Entrepreneurship and Job Creation, we've been talking to Mr. Emmanuel Awume. He's been telling us about how the TVET education and skill he acquired in automobile engineering enabled him to start a car wash and car care business with a difference. And the craziest of all, how he had the opportunity to detail the presidential fleet of ceremonial cars under all the presidents since the Fourth Republic, including the current one. Very interesting, but not a surprising story about how far TVET education and skill can take anyone in terms of starting a business, creating employment, and growing from there. We are now on the third video with Mr. Awume, and this is where things get even more interesting. And please listen to this carefully. Listen to what he's coming to tell us in this video, because it is something that a lot of people either ignore or do not take seriously, but which has landed a number of people in jail. Now let's go and listen to Mr. Awume as he talks to us about Sesil Ventures, the TVET inspired business that we are all learning from.
So in the pace of 8 years, I had opened about 5 branches.
Wow.
Yes, in the pace of 8 years, I had opened about 5 branches. But then the worst happened when I met one of a business person whose space I was to use to open my 5th branch.
Okay.
Now, what happened was he gave me a space and we agreed on a figure to pay 300 Ghana cedis a month for 2 years. Then he allowed me to operate, to start developing the place, and that we could document the agreement at a later time.
Okay.
So exuberant as I was as a youth enterprising person, seeing how business was becoming more interesting and I was creating jobs for a lot more people, I just took the opportunity and invested so much into that property. I used all my internally generated funds and even went for a facility from the bank, to develop a very modern setup in that station. Now, after I completed and operated for like a year, this man then invited me to his office for us to document the agreement, because it was a verbal agreement we had.
Okay.
Now, upon handing over the document to me, I got to realize that the 300 Ghana cedis for 2 years that we agreed upon has turned to $500.
What?
For 2 years. Now,
$500 a month?
A month for 2 years. And trust you me, it was as though I saw my end from my beginning. I almost went black out. Now, I tried to get him to understand that this was not what we agreed upon. We agreed on 300 Ghana cedis, for which I did all my projections, knowing that that is what I can use to run the business and sustain it. But with $500 for 2 years was just out of my budget and out of the question, because that was not what we agreed upon. But trust you me, this man insisted that was the amount I was going to pay, and that either I pay the entire amount or I pay for the number of months I've stayed on the property and fold up.
Wow.
I had taken money from the banks. I hadn't gone any far in paying the banks, so I could not go back to the bank to take any further loan. So the only option was the money I had saved to pay for the 300 Ghana cedis a month. I used it to pay him, and it could not complete the entire amount. So I had to fold up.
Really?
Yes. And trust
fold
me,
up as in that branch?
That branch, the entire branch has to close down.
But the other branches were still working?
Now, the other branches would have worked. But the situation was that because I took money from the other branches to add up to the loan to complete that project, there wasn't enough funds at the other branches to maintain them. And for as long as I continue to keep those branches running and I don't have money to pay my rent, I'll be accruing extra rent at all the branches. That will make my trouble worse. Multiply. And so the best idea I took was to rather quickly close them, so that whatever little bit, all of them, leaving Glory Oil where I am now, so that whatever little debt I owe, I manage to clear them, so I can have a peace of mind. So I lost everything I owed, and even it heavily affected my operations at the Glory Oil station, because I couldn't have enough resources to reinvest in terms of buying products and material, and detailing is quite a cost-intensive business, and so that also affected our operations here, until it got to a stage where the banks also started chasing me for their money.
Boy.
And so the only source of income was here, the Glory Oil branch. But here is the case, there wasn't enough funds to reinvest and boost the business to run. I wasn't being able to generate enough here to even pay the banks. So I had to resort to another option, to probably either sell off the business and use the money to pay the banks then and be free, or I ran a partnership arrangement. So fortunately, I got this investor who came from the UK and wanted to settle in Ghana, and so he's a Ghanaian anyway, and so he showed interest, and I made him realize that, okay, this is the situation, I need to settle the bank. That is why I'm taking this decision. Initially, I'd wanted to give out the entire business out, but later I decided to give out about 70%, which will be good enough to pay off the banks, all my debts, and I can be free. All right, so we agreed on that. He gave me a month to make the money available, but when the month came up, he was able to give me only 30% of the amount
of the
70 that he wanted to pay. And then later on, as time went on, I realized that he did not have the money, and so the strategy he adopted was to start operating the place and then use resources from the place to pay me. You understand? So that was what happened towards the second month, or towards the third month. I realized that was the strategy he was trying to adopt. So immediately I got alarmed, and I drew his attention to the fact that the agreement we had was for him to pay me 70% within the first month for me to settle my debt. If that is not happening, then I can only give him 30% of shares, as he had already paid, and I take up the 70. He quickly realized that I have gotten his strategy, so he agreed to it. So I got a reversal of the shares, had 70 and he had 30. All right. Now, but then
the partnership agreement,
that was the partner. No, it was frozen on the way. Now, along the line, then I got to realize that he had an ulterior motive. Now, because he came from the UK, he brought a lot of products and chemicals for detailing.
Okay.
So what he was doing was selling those products to the company, our partnership business.
He was selling the product
to his own company at very exorbitant prices. So whatever we make, as in terms of income, at least about 70% goes into buying products. Then we now strike the 70% shares on the 30% on the profit. So at the end of the day, he was still taking majority shares. Okay, so after 1 year, fortunately, I made the agreement subject to renewal after every year.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So I tolerated him for the year to end, and then I made him realize that I got an accountant to run our account for us, and then we realized that we were rather running at a loss instead of making profit. So I made him realize that no business person will go into partnership to want to register losses. If that is what is happening, then I am not ready to renew the agreement. So we truncated the partnership agreement from there.
Oh, okay.
All right. Now, what I did was, what I was generating from that income, I decided to invest it into education. That was when I went to the university.
Wow. Okay. Now, before we continue, I just want to go back a little. What did this teach you about running a business, particularly for younger folks, starting business?
Yes.
This whole experience.
Yes. What the lessons I learned were that, one, we should not haste in expanding our businesses in terms of opening branches.
We should not, or we should haste.
We should not haste. We should not rush to want to open up branches because we want to expand without having enough financial backup.
Right.
Because challenges will surely come along the way in running your business, and you need financial backup to be able to augment and support you out of those situations.
So you expanded too fast.
I expanded too fast, too quick, within the pace of 8 years, and having 5 branches. So every money I made was used in reinvesting in opening a branch. So I didn't have enough financial backing. If I had enough financial backing, then I would have been able to pay off the rent as the man demanded. But because I didn't have enough financial backing to even pay rent for the subsequent branches, I had to close down. Okay, so expansion does not necessarily mean profitability. We have to take note of that. And then 2, what I also learned was not to take verbal agreement for an agreement.
Everything must be written down.
There must be documentation, because it was lack of the documentation we did from the word go. That was what led to my failure and collapse of my business.
But do you think if you insisted on having everything documented, he would have given you that piece of land in the first place?
Good. That is where the challenge is. That is where the challenge is to that startup entrepreneur who doesn't have enough money and is almost pleading to have something, and that offer is being given to that person, and the person will go like, look, if we don't document, it's like being a beggar and want to give an instruction.
Exactly.
You understand? So the challenge was not as a result of being nab in mind, but it was as a result of relationship and what our culture as Ghanaians teaches us about how we relate to adults.
So and in this a practical situation like that, what would we have, what should one do?
Yes, so if it were now, I will still insist for documentation before I start.
But you are a big man, so...
Okay, so that is why I think this program becomes very good to inform the young and up-and-coming ones. It will be better for you to walk away from such type of a deal than to walk into it and have problems.
Wow. So let me get this straight. You are saying that for a startup entrepreneur, if you want something and it's being given to you for free and you want documentation, it's not being given to you, you should walk away.
That would be the best. From my experience, I will walk away.
Oh, wow.
Because you can establish a goodwill. Now, let me give you one practical example. I will recommend you subscribe to this channel. This is a channel that seeks to provide you with enough information on entrepreneurship, technical vocational education and training, and ICT. These are sets of information, when well harnessed and made judicious use of, can help build on your human capital in the job market. It can as well get you well informed to set yourself up as an entrepreneur and build a big business out of this. This will help you walk yourself away from unemployment, and together we will be able to contribute to reduce the unemployment rate we have in our country.